What's up, my family and friends? You know what? It is that time again that I share with you another true life experience. This one does not involve astral projection, but it does involve another fact of matter when it comes to perceiving and experiencing beyond what we have been conditioned to perceive as the five senses. Most of you guys who have been following me for some time now, you know that I had an aunt who had passed away. Her funeral was March 23rd, and we had taken some pictures at the burial site. My sister and some other cousins had taken pictures inside the funeral. I had taken pictures of my aunt lying in the coffin. I didn't take any broad scene type photos, but my sister had done those, and there were some orbs in hers. She had a couple of orbs actually in her photos. I saved my energy in my Samsung digital camera for the burial site, of course, after I'd gotten a couple of pictures of my aunt lying in the casket. And so we were all down there on the burial site. We paid our respects, said what we had to say, and many of the family members and friends started to dissipate. But the grandchildren of my aunt, they kind of stayed around. And so we had asked the grandchildren to stand in groups, and we would take pictures of them on the burial site or by the casket. And again, I had taken all of my pictures with a digital camera, Samsung digital camera. My sister used one of those disposable cameras. And I took the pictures, kind of scanned over them, didn't think much about them. And so I would say about a month after, I had decided to send all of the pictures, a month after the funeral, mind you. I had decided to transfer all of the pictures that I had taken so that I can download them and transfer them into my picture folder that I have with a lot of pictures that I take over the years. And of course, you can see the photo much better. You can zoom in. And what I found through looking through the photos that I had taken, particularly on the burial site, was some interdimensional activity, and it's very, very obvious. I'm going to share it with you guys, and then I'm going to come back and draw a moral to what I'm about to share with you. The first photo, of course, I had to black out the faces of my relatives to protect their privacy and their identity. In this first photo, what I noticed right away is that there is a guy standing behind my cousin. This guy is not a family member. This guy is not a friend of the family. This guy was not in this photo when I had taken this picture because it was just for my aunt's grandchildren. And they were the only one that I could see with my 3D eye who was in this photo. But of course, you can see where I show this guy here. I'm going to highlight it. And the top of his head is washed out. And even when you look at the bottom, you see his legs, feet and legs is showing very clearly. But as you go up, it gets washed out. And what's really interesting too is that if we were to just look at the proportions of this guy, something is very off. Look at his head and where his arms is in conjunction to, or in contrast to, his upper body. Then in the second photo I took, it's another photo of my cousins. They kind of shift their pose, but then you see whoever the person or entity was behind my cousin, they shift focus. I have to darken these pictures because when I transferred them over, the pixel quality just got really distorted and lighter. But as you can see, the entity is looking down. And what is this behind his head? Something strange. It almost looked like a brain or something that's attached to his head, but it's kind of hard to make it out because it's really distorted. But what's even interesting, or even more interesting, if you move over in this same photo, there is another entity right here in between the hands of one of my cousins who was taking a picture of my younger cousins. Look at this face in between the both of his hands. That face looks almost like me. And again, just like the entity in this photo, if you go down, you see clear as day the leg, the clothing. Look at the hands. The hands, they almost look alien-like. The fingers are very long and elongated. I believe that's the distortion of the vibratory field that they're in. But look at that. That is very, very interesting. Now, I had shown these very same photos with other members of the family, my sister, and they all see it and they all agreed these people were not on the ground. They're not members of the family. They're not friends. So who were they? I had my own conclusion or idea as to who they are, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I want you guys to think about that one. But I showed these photos in a much clearer format because I showed it from the original pictures. And my mom said she just see a black dot. Where am I going with this? Okay, you have people with different devices or a different kind of device. Both cameras, one digital, one disposable. One camera picked up something that the other didn't. How is that possible? Think of the camera as mimicking the lens to the eyes. And just like the lens of a camera, the lens of the physical human eye, some can detect and pick up a light spectrum that others cannot. My mom looked at these photos. We can see these beings in these photos clear as day, but from her lens, she looked at them and didn't see anything. She sees a black dot. So you see where I'm going with this. We decode information and light spectrums. We break them down and we decode them differently. Even with the cameras, a more advanced digital type camera would of course pick up more detail and a broader light spectrum than say a disposable camera, just like what my sister had. So this is why when someone says that they can see something that we cannot or we may not see, it does not mean that they are crazy. It's just that that person in that moment has a connection, or their lens is able to decode a light spectrum that we cannot. My mom, ironically, told of a story years ago where she was working part-time at a Montgomery ward. They had closed down, everything was shut down. She was counting her drawer, the money in her drawer, and she saw clear as day in 3D a woman walking up the escalator and got to the top and disappeared, and she was shocked and wasn't going to say anything until a co-worker who was standing behind her said, "Did you see that?" And my mom said, "Yeah, I saw that, but I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want y'all to think I'm crazy." And the lady said, "No, I saw that too." And my mom went to her pastor and told her pastor about that experience that she had, and her pastor told her that it was a wandering soul, a soul who was confused and wandering and lost. And that may be the case, but that's not always the case. And my mom, I think, was kind of put off and shaken by that because, she was brought up with a certain kind of belief system, and this was something that sort of rocked her paradigm and her belief system. And she wasn't going to say anything to us, her co-workers, her pastor. It wasn't until someone in that same time and space actually saw what she saw and described it identically that she realized that she was not crazy. And this was then to my mom's, her own personal journey in understanding the things that I've been talking about over the years, that there is more going on around us and more than meets the eye. And so, again, this goes back to us having different lenses, different interpretation, belief systems, and filters that come along with it. And therefore, because of the way we are wired and conditioned and programmed, some of us will be more open to seeing and picking up things that most or the majority can or will not. But again, the veil is thinning. The veil is thinning, and that means more of us will be having these experiences, whether we like them or not. And it's nothing to be fearful of. This is simply the nature of reality coming into full bloom. And on that note, family, continue to question, learn, and grow. Remember, the ultimate illumination comes from within.